What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Art of Suffering podcast. Today, we have our first guest. So we have Corey. How do you say your last name?
Hershkowitz.
Hershkowitz. I wasn't even going to try to butcher that one. This guy is the mastermind behind the Rubuck Nevada YouTube channel. Just starting out, how long have you been on YouTube?
The channel's a couple years old. I put out 3 or 4 videos. I believe it was 2021.
Okay.
And then kind of lost interest, moved to a ranch that didn't have internet, and then moved back into some internet service and ended up moving to the ranch I work for now. The folks I work for now are awesome.
Okay.
They let me take any day work. They don't need me totally full time, so they let me take day work and other jobs and stuff. And my wife says, you ought to film your day work and post it and see where it leads you.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how it started off there. About 6 months now I've been posting consistently.
Okay, cool. Okay. So if you haven't checked out the Rubuck Nevada YouTube channel, go check that out. I actually filmed earlier this week a react video to one of Corey's videos. He sent it to me on YouTube. Excuse me. He sent it to me through email to react to, and we watched it. Some really educational stuff on his channel. If you're wanting to learn how to doctor cattle, it is a great free resource for you to extend your knowledge and watch somebody do it in their element. So starting out, I'll just ask, we don't know each other from Adam. Basically, Corey sent me an email with the video in it, and I was like, dude, you should come on the podcast. Of course, we're probably like-minded because of what we do, but I just thought it'd be really cool to visit with him. And so let's start with that. Where'd you grow up, man?
I grew up just outside of Carson City, Nevada.
Okay, so you've always been from that area.
Yep, always been from northern Nevada. Pretty common around this part of the world to crawl around a lot of different parts of the state.
Mm-hmm.
I've worked a little bit in central Nevada and here and there in northern Nevada. Went to college in Iowa.
Iowa?
Yeah, just kind of got out of high school and got a little scholarship to ride bucking horses and decided to go see a different part of the world.
Mm-hmm.
And, met my wife there. The Midwest was a lot of fun, but I went running back to the desert.
Yeah. Well, why is that, you think?
I missed the mountains. Didn't much care for the flatland.
Yeah. I've never spent any time in what'd you say, Iowa?
Yeah.
Never been to Iowa. At least I don't think I have.
It's so flat the raindrops just turn into a puddle when they hit.
That is fantastic. That sounds terrible. Being where I'm from, I don't know. I don't know if you get much worse than the sweaty armpit of America where we live, but I've never worked in Nevada. I went to a ranch roping in Winnemucca.
Uh-huh.
And we drove from Oklahoma up to there. And so we drove like from Las Vegas to Winnemucca. And I have never in my life felt more isolated driving on that road. It was desolate, dude. Like there is
Isn't it
nothing.
awesome?
No, it was like there wasn't even any animals, dude. Like in Wyoming, where we worked in Wyoming, like you would see just critters everywhere, but there was nothing. I think we saw a couple of donkeys, and that was it, man. There is nothing out there.
Yeah, that's where I feel most at home is from kind of that Tonopah North country, all the way clear up to the northern end of the state is where I feel at home. And the further out, the better. I think it was my wife's 3rd or 4th wedding anniversary before we were actually together on our anniversary because I was usually out doing something somewhere.
Really? How does she deal with that? Did she know what she was getting herself into?
No, she's from Wisconsin originally, so she had no idea what a working cowboy is. And we met in college. I mean, the 2nd or 3rd day. Well, we hadn't been there very long, and started dating and dated for 2 years and graduated. And I said, "Look, I love you, honey. I'm going back to the desert. I'd love it if you come with me, but I get it if you don't want to." And she did. She followed me and she learned, and she's pretty capable on a horse now. She's not scared to cook for a ranch, do kind of whatever's needed.
Yeah. I kind of had a similar deal. So I fished in college. I went to school and wanted to play baseball and just wasn't good enough to play. And had a buddy of mine that was like, "Hey, you should come join the fishing team. That's like a big deal down here." And so I fished all through college. So my wife thought she was marrying a fisherman. And when I started cowboying, because I didn't start, I mean, I didn't, my dad had horses growing up or whatever. Like he trained horses. And but I didn't live with him. Like my folks are divorced, and so I went and worked, got a job on the ranch with him when I was like 24 years old. So I didn't doctor cattle or rope, or I didn't even know what doctoring cattle was, which kind of brings me around to like, it's funny. The reason we started our YouTube channel was because the first time I saw him doctor one, I was like, this is freaking incredible, dude. Like, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life. So somebody my age, my generation, immediately goes home and YouTubes it and looks it up. And there was nothing, dude. Nothing like your channel, nothing like our channel. You could not watch a guy rope a calf in a pasture on YouTube in 2016.
Right.
And so I started begging my dad. I was like, you got to wear this GoPro, dude. You have to wear it. And he wouldn't do it. He was like he was restless, irritable, and discontent, been working for the same place forever, was just like disgruntled, And it took me like 7 months to convince him to put it on. And when he did, he was like, dude, it's like you're sitting in the saddle with me. Like, it's incredible. And so we filmed for like a whole year before we ever posted anything on YouTube just for us to watch it. So it's crazy how far it's come, because there's like literally the Bundy Ranch. You seen their YouTube channel?
Yep.
They're doing a YouTube ranch rodeo this year, where they've invited a bunch of Western YouTube channels to come and compete in a ranch rodeo in Mesquite, Nevada. So I have a clinic that weekend, but my dad and Abby and Richard Boatwright, they got a team. They're going to go down there and compete in that ranch rodeo. And Dale Brisby, Bronx and Donks, like all those big YouTube channels are supposed to be down there competing in that thing. It's come a long way.
That's going to be really cool to help, like you said, this side of YouTube grow, because we can all showcase our skills, and we all do things a little bit different, but in the end, we're all in it as beef producers, and we can help that beef producer industry grow and get the knowledge out there and get rid of some of the ill conceptions.
100%, 100%. And that's kind of you've seen the React videos. It's like, there is so much foolishness on the internet, dude, when it comes to this stuff. And I'm sure that you get the comments like, this dude doesn't know his saddle horn from a hole in the ground and is telling you all about yourself on the internet. And it's just so irritating.
Yeah. Or this person's never left the Bronx, New York in their life, and they're telling me how I'm a horrible person for doing what I do.
Yes.
But they like to go eat a steak.
Yeah. And that's the biggest misconception, is like, or one thing that I've ran into for years. Like, we've been battling keyboard cowboys for years, you know what I mean? And like, they don't know that we don't get paid if the cow dies.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Or if we hurt our horses, they're not going to work for us.
Period. End of story. It's absurd. And so the more like Yellowstone is like lots of cowboys hate Yellowstone, lots of them. And I've never watched it. I watched like the first episode, and when old boy ran down there to rope a horse with like a 30-footer on a slick horn saddle, I was like, that's not going to work out probably. But I was like, it's like a doctor watching a doctor show, so, but what it did is it created this where a lot of people got kind of back into the Western side of things. And it's an opportunity to educate people if they're willing to listen. But dang it, dude, the comments are just like, oh my gosh. The best day of my life was when Abby started answering all the Facebook comments. Like, I was like, okay, you can have this part of my job because I just don't want to do it anymore. I just cannot argue with these people. And of course she was like, yeah, sure, you bet, I got it. So if you're talking to us on Facebook, it's Abby. If somebody makes you mad, YouTube would be me. So it's been a good deal. So you're married. How many kids you got?
Just one little girl. Yeah.
Yeah, how old is she?
about 16 months.
Oh man, she sleeping?
Right now, yep, I just put her down.
No, no, I mean through the night, dude.
Oh, yeah, for the most part.
Yeah,
She's still a little tick in bed and weasels around now and then. Tries
yeah.
to use up as much of it as she can, but
How's the transition from just being a husband to being a father gone for you?
oh, to be totally honest, I'm selfish with my time, and it's been a hard transition.
Yes, it
I've
is.
I've had I've had two projects that I started the summer before she was born, and finally just got one of them finished.
Hmm.
And it's hard to remember that you have to put that little girl first and not yourself.
Hmm.
It's getting easier as time goes on.
It does. I had a conversation with a guy. He's the farrier that does our educational videos on our website, and he's got to about I we have one that's about the same age, and we're having kids about the same time, and we were talking about it the other day, and we were talking about the mourning of your old life because it's dead.
Yeah.
Like if you set out to be a good father, your old self dies when those
Hmm.
little ones come, because the selfishness that if you continue with the selfishness, it destroys. It'll destroy your family. It'll destroy your wife. It'll destroy your kids. And so changing yourself in the way that you think is like a death. I mean, for a man, honestly, and I don't think no one can tell you that until you have them, and then you have some sort of understanding of what it's actually going to take. I had a guy, um his name's Richard Boatwright. He's my dad's best friend when I was a kid, and the first ranch roping I went to, I'm sitting next to him on my horse, right, and I'm just sitting there, I'm not saying nothing. I got married probably a year before, and he doesn't even look at me, and he just says, "Y'all thinking about having kids?" I kind of looked over at him, and I was like, "Yeah, man, we maybe in a year or two, or whatever, what everybody says." And then I just kind of keep staring at him, and he never even turned his head, and he just said, "It's not worth the fleeting moments of happiness you'll have once they're here." And I was like, "God Almighty, dude! Like that was morbid, Richard. What the heck, man?" And I called him 6 months after my son was born. My wife was pregnant the next month. 6 months after my son was born, I was like, "Bro, I've never had someone be more honest with me in my life than you were that day at that roping." And it was because I didn't know what I was going to have to give up to have kids. Now, is it worth it? 1,000,000%. But
It's
it's a
worth it, but
lot.
not in the ways you'd expect.
Yes.
You know, I,
Yes.
I had a friend of mine, Christian Oyarzun. He said the same thing. He says the first 2 years, it's a pain in the butt. He says, but after that, it gets more fun by the day.
It is that first year, dude, is a write off, son. Write it off. It is hell on earth, dude, for your wife. That was a hard thing for me, is like you can't even help your wife. Like she pretty much is doing all of it, and you're just
Oh yeah.
watching. Like,
Yeah. My wife had our little girl at home on the couch, and she says, "Well, do you want to get a doula?" And I says, "To do what?" She says, "Well, stuff around the house." I said, "What am I gonna do during this whole process?" I smoked a tri-tip. That's
yeah,
what I did.
yeah.
And she, bless her heart, she went through like 26 or 28 hours of labor and
Oh
had her on the
gosh.
couch, and everything was good. And the only thing that we laugh about now is I told her that the tri-tip was going to be ready at 6:30, and it was like 4 o'clock the next morning when she finally had the baby. So,
Oh my gosh, dude. See, that's a thing. That's not a culture down here. Like lots of my friends that live out where you guys are in those isolated places, like having kids at home in Alabama, not a thing. People do not do that here. It's very I've never heard of anyone doing that. And I've lots of friends in Wyoming and now you that have had them at home, and that is just a totally different monster. And she didn't have a doula or nothing.
we had a midwife that was there, but we didn't have a doula. And
Okay.
to get my wife to go to the hospital, I mean, she'd have to be unconscious, and you'd have to drag her through the door. That's just the
Really?
type of just the type of person she is. Where we're at in Fallon right now, we're literally about 5 minutes from the hospital here. So
Okay.
it wasn't a distance thing. It's just, there's a lot of modern medicine that we don't agree with, and she says
Agreed.
I can do this on my own, and I said, well, may you and the Lord will be there.
That
So
is hats off, buddy. That's insane. Um, my wife literally almost died with my first one. He came like 9 weeks early, and he was in the
wow.
NICU for 5 weeks. It was terrible. After that, I was like, bro, we going to the hospital. If you fart, we're going to the hospital. I'm not kidding, because it spooked me pretty good. The second one was kosher. Like, that first calf heifer is that can be a challenging thing.
Oh yeah.
But the
No, the midwife was a huge comfort. I mean, we started meeting with her, from when we found out Bailey was pregnant, and she told us the whole way through. She says, "I have hard lines, and if anything I'm watching crosses those lines, I'll tell you, and we'll go to the hospital, and I represent you at the hospital."
mhm.
So it was in the comfort of home with the reassurance of knowing that there was a set of parameters that were for her safety.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, it was a freak deal, dude. Like being that early, it was like a it
Oh
was a
yeah, that's a
god it was a
scary,
god
scary
thing.
deal.
But
Yeah.
he was little bitty, dude. He weighed like 3 pounds 2 ounces. He's
Oh,
big
I
now. We're
was
playing
tiny.
baseball. He can rope. He can do all the stuff. He's a fun kid. So let's talk a little bit about. We got the wife. We got the little one.
Yep.
Very challenging being a new dad and doing what we do.
Right.
I talk about it a lot because I don't think people quite understand the hours that go in to being an actual working cowhand. Really anywhere. And the places, see, my background's in preconditioning. So background in yards, that sort of deal. Yearlings. I've never worked on a cow calf deal. Don't really know anything about that, if I'm being completely honest. Other than that's where we get our calves from to precondition. So all the cow calf stuff I've done is just going to Brandon's. And
Mhm.
I when we had Wiley and he came home from the NICU, that is when I quit my job cowboying and started working for 310 full time. Um, and it was just because I could not. I mean, I made $300 a week, and I worked 6 days a week, daylight to dark, way
Right.
before daylight, honestly. And I was like, man, I'm gonna take that $300 and I'm gonna give it to some clown at a daycare that doesn't care about my kid.
Right.
And my wife couldn't stay home because she made all the money because I was cowboying. You
Right.
know what I mean? Like she totally supported us in that time because here, man, I mean, I was making $85 a day to cowboy, and so, and that's before taxes. So she was making all the money, and I had this super difficult transition going from that job to a stay-at-home dad. So how, for the people out there who got new little kids, how do you balance it? How do you?
Um, we're lucky. Again, the people I work for are awesome, so they let me switch my days off to where Bailey works a 4-day week, I work a 5-day week, and we don't have any days off together. And for the remainder 2 days of the week, my mother comes out and babysits, which she was ecstatic when I asked her for that. I felt bad asking. Mom just retired. I mean, a few
Yeah,
months before the baby was born, and I really felt bad asking like I was encroaching on mom's retirement, and she was ecstatic, be a grandma, especially 2 days a week, and it's
yeah,
been really good. Mom probably wishes I'd put some more wood in the fire every now and then. The house gets a little chilly, but
right.
it's been good. We had Bailey and I'd had talked about having kids when I was cowboying for some other places, but this kind of seemed to be the best place. The other outfits I was at, I was in camp 6 days a week for 8 months a year, and
Oh my gosh.
it would have been. I loved that life. I miss it. I mean, that's a sacrifice for having a kid right there.
Yeah,
I think back a lot. That's a time of my life I miss. But we decided not to have kids then because to see your dad, one day a week, 2 nights a week, when he comes home Saturday night, showers,
Yeah.
eats, and goes to bed, and you get Sunday with them. That's not too fair. A lot of families
Hmm.
do it. A lot of oil field families do stuff like that, and I give
Hmm.
credit to them for making it work. Where this outfit, I'm home most nights. So self admission here, I'm not strictly a cowboy. I do everything: haying, mechanicking,
Real
irrigating,
hands do. All
real
real
hands.
hands
Yep,
do.
yep. My stepdad told me when I hired on my first big outfit. He says, if you got a riding job, that's great, ride hard. He says, but don't ever be too proud to step off and grab a wrench or a shovel.
A hundred
And
percent.
and so like this outfit, haying season, I might not be home until the early morning hours because here we have to bale with the dew a lot of times because our hay's too dry. And
Hmm.
um, when I go day working, like right at the time you and I are shooting this, my channel's a couple episodes into being out at the Colby Cattle Company, and that was a
Okay.
7-day trip for me.
Hmm.
And it was middle of November when that was all filmed, and I just made sure that my wife had plenty of wood on the porch. I put a big bale in the hay net for the horses I was leaving home, and she's a good shot, so I don't worry about her.
Yeah. Right. Well, it's kind of the same way, and the sacrifices that our wives make for us to be able to do this, because I also over the years have traveled quite a bit. Not necessarily, I guess it is day working, except for we're driving, you know 24 hours to do it, and then we'd
Right.
stay for a month and film and then come back. Or we did go that one season in Wyoming, and we all moved there for the whole summer, which was
Oh wow.
freaking awesome. Oh, so much fun. So much fun. But we were based out of Oklahoma at the time. So I'm originally from Alabama. That's where I learned to cowboy. That's where I grew up. And then we moved the whole company to Oklahoma. And then we kind of traveled out from there. We go do a clinic or go doctor yearlings with a guy. And then we come back, and my wife kind of did the same thing, just kind of, held down the fort um, while we were off doing what we needed to do. Because a big part of our deal is the footage.
Right.
We use it to sell ropes, and that's kind of a big piece of our puzzle, is the marketing, so to speak. So it's but dang it, man, it's hard on them. I always think about it kind of like a military wife. Like when I was in the military, I was like, well, if I get deployed, then you're just gonna have to handle it. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
we'll
Like,
make it work.
yeah, 100%. And so I totally understand what you're saying, especially like the further you go along with YouTube, every opportunity you don't take, you're just leaving video gold out there. I mean, it's
Right.
just, there's, if you don't turn the camera on and you go doctor a calf, you just left it laying in the field. I mean, it's just
Oh
in the
yeah.
pasture. You
Yep.
don't have it now.
And
Um,
you'll always catch that really cool loop when you're not filming.
100%, 100%. But that's awesome, man. It's awesome to hear that your wife is uh, a big part of it. Cause that's kind of been my philosophy is, if my wife is not on board, we're not doing it. I mean,
Uh,
it's just not
Absolutely.
worth it.
Since the day we met in college, it's for both of us, it's felt like it's been her and I against the world. And all the decisions we've made to move ranches or, different jobs or this or that, we've made together. And there's been differences of opinion, and some compromise and this and that. And we've learned now that the things that the Lord wants us to do are going to come easy. Like this YouTube channel, it's came really easy. It's been a lot of fun. For a
Hmm.
long time, we wanted to have our own ranch and our own cow herd, and that whole thing kind of fought with us, and some things didn't work out, and that's okay. We were pretty bummed out for a while, and we had to learn to quit measuring ourselves on that and just take the successes as they come, because you'll go down the path that the Lord wants you to if you quit fighting with Him over it.
100%, 100%. Everybody can, everybody can feel a bracy horse. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm. Yep.
And I feel like, you know, the horse knows. Of course, the horse knows he's bracing. It's the same with us and the king. Like if you're freaking tight lipped and like bracing, dude, it's coming.
Yeah.
It's not going to be
I,
a fun time.
I'm not good with names and I'm not good remembering specific scriptures, but Jesus was telling one of his disciples, if you go into a house and they don't welcome you, wipe the dirt from your feet when you leave. And I've always kind of had that mentality. It's like, there's been opportunities that didn't work out, and that's okay. I don't hold anything, against for whatever reason they didn't work out, but I'm off to the next thing, and we're going to try and make this one work.
Mm-hmm. Man, that's awesome. So let's get into, before we talk about YouTube at all, let's talk about some of your, now this is a good one, dude. This will clam a dude up right here. Let's talk about kind of your principles on horsemanship and stock handling and your rope handling, because lots of different people watch our stuff.
Right.
People from Texas and the South and all over the world. So kind of give them a little insight into your philosophies when it comes to how you handle your livestock and then your rope handling.
Okay, well, anybody from Texas is, no, I'm just kidding. I'm not going to start that argument. I think that, well, okay, a little bit of preface here is I started breeding half draft horses. I got a nice quarter horse mare I crossed to a Clydesdale stud. And if I can plug him in here, I can. If not, that's fine.
Yeah, no, plug him. Plug away.
His registered name is Battle River Inc. He's from the Raise a Glass Ranch out of Forsyth, Georgia. I hope I'm saying that right.
Mm-hmm.
I've got 3 colts on the ground and another one that'll be here in about a month, and I plan on breeding back to him again. And I noticed that guys are riding these smaller quarter horses out on these big deserts, and boy, they can move and they'll run you right to one, and they're smart and they watch a cow nice and they got a good brain to them. And then by the time they're 13 years old, they're used up. Their joints are bad. They're, you get a Beefmaster bull somewhere and he saws up on you or something. Them little horses, they just don't got the weight to pull on them. So when I started working for the outfit I'm working for now, a good friend of mine, Dr. Torvik, she's a vet, and her and I were just talking one day, and I was really ignorant about the whole thing, and it just kind of thinking out loud, I guess you could say. I says, man, I wish you could breed a Clydesdale stud to a quarter horse mare without worrying about hurting a mare. And she looks at me, she says, you can. And I says, what do you mean you can? She says, the mare's got a hormone that won't let the foal grow too big to have it safely. So you could cross the Clydesdale, do a mini if you wanted and be okay. I don't, if you try that and it fails, that's not on me. But
and I said, really? And
she says there's a hormone in the mare's body that it's not like breeding a great big bull on a first calf heifer where it's going to be a wreck. It ain't like that with horses. And so I said okay, and like 3 months later, I had bought this broodmare from some friends of mine and had found this Clydesdale stud I liked, and I liked him. I guess I didn't really know what I was looking for, what kind of Clydesdale or what kind of draft stud I wanted to breed to. But he's athletic. He shows in jumping, and he does movies and stuff. I mean, he's not just a plow horse.
Yeah.
And I told my wife, I says, well, something athletic would be a great thing to cross with. So we crossed him, and the first one that hit the ground was this little dun stud colt. And I was a really avid Rush Limbaugh listener, and he hit the ground about a week after Rush died.
Yeah.
So I named him Rush Limbaugh. And and he's so cool now that the people that watch my channel, they know him, and they've seen him on a couple of days because he'll just be a 4-year-old this year. So going back to how I think about him is I don't use him young. I rode him, I think 2 or 3 days outside as a 3-year-old, and a handful of really short rides as a 2-year-old. I don't believe in putting a lot of time on him young. But by crossing the quarter horse onto that draft stud, I get a great big horse who's gentle and surprised me, but they actually watch a cow, and he's starting to figure out he can put pressure on cows and move them around.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest thing I try to do is a horse knows how to move. We just got to stay out of their way and let them know what we'd like them to do.
100%. Yeah.
I start my horses in a hackamore, which is a challenge with these half drafts because a regular hackamore don't fit them once they get to be a 4-year-old.
Right.
And eventually he'll move up through the 2 rein and straight up into the bridle.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that as the herd gets older and grows, I could sell 1 or 2 a year and help an income that way. But I don't pick on my horses very hard when I'm riding them. I'm not trying to get him show ready or anything like that. If he works with his head up in the air a little bit and he's working and he's where he needs to be doing what he needs to do, that's fine. Let him have his head up in the air a little bit. Now,
Yeah.
if he's got his eyes closed, he's nose in the air and he's running through a hackamore, well, that's not good either.
Yeah.
But
Well,
just
everybody that does the job knows what that means. You know
yeah,
what I'm saying? Like collection, I think it's tough talking horse stuff because you get in trouble really quick here. But to me, there's mental, emotional, and physical collection. If I have the mental and emotional, I don't care. Like if you need to have your head a little higher and maybe your nose out to get a job done, right? And we don't have to be just framed up. I
right.
don't care. Don't get beat
Right.
by the cow. You know what I'm saying? If
Yeah.
you're between my legs and I'm between your ears and we're doing a job, let's do the job,
Yeah, your reaction video, that Mustang I was riding when I
Mm-hmm.
doctored the earling,
Yeah.
he is the prime example that his head will be up, he won't have his ribs picked up or nothing, and he will step out in front of a cow and I mean almost squirt out from underneath you because he don't feel like he can do it,
Yeah.
but he can.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, I don't get him ready for the show pen. It's not my thing. I have a lot of respect for the guys that do because it's pretty amazing how much and how far they can bring a horse along that's young.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd rather just, it's like driving an old pickup. It might not be the prettiest thing, but it gets the job done the same.
100%. I think excuse me, I'm getting over the flu. Sorry. I really think a lot of cowhands are that way, and I don't, like you said, I have a lot of respect for the show horse guys, and quite frankly, I'm probably not disciplined to do that job, disciplined enough
Right.
to get a horse to be that way. I want them to do their job. I want them to do it soft, and I want them to do their job. and then I just want to go to work and have a good day because everybody knows what it's like going to work on a puke that either is too slow or just too high-headed to do the job. Just be in the middle. Let's get our stuff doctored. Let's go home and get some supper, Okay, so let's talk about stockmanship because from the React video that I watched, I will be the first to applaud you, sir, on an exceptional example of what stockmanship should be.
Thank you. Thank you. I just try and do what's best for the animal. Whether it's in that pen and making sure not to run them on them concrete mangers, or out in the desert. You just they're Yes, they're for slaughter. We eat them, but they're living creatures too. They got feelings. I just
Mm-hmm.
try and do what's best for them, whatever the situation is. And sometimes that's the opposite of what it was yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah,
know,
no, 100%. Sometimes you got to get a little respect. You know what I'm saying? Like, and
Mhm.
normally that doesn't make it to YouTube for anyone who knows what getting some respect looks like. But the fact is that the goal is to go out and take care of the calf. It's a sick animal that needs some help, and
Right.
that's what we're doing. Um, you're in that particular video, which obviously I haven't watched all of your videos, but in that particular one, your exceptional use of your horse, the horse's position to keep the calf out of the herd, and then your quickness and reaction time on going to the horn when it didn't go your way, even though you're positioned perfectly, the calf still gets by you, and you got it all stopped and got the calf tripped before it got to the herd. If you haven't watched the video, by the time this podcast episode comes out, you'll be able to watch the React video, and obviously you can go to Rubuck Nevada's channel and watch the video, especially if you're new to this stuff. It is such a good example of how to sneak up on one, get a good shot in the herd, and then take care of the herd. There is nothing worse on earth than going into a pen of cattle that some stink has been running all over creation. Do you know what I'm saying?
Well, he
It,
wasn't sick before you doctored him, but you run him enough. Now he needs doctored
God
anyways.
almighty, dude. I mean, it's the other calves that get me. Like, you know, we'd
Yeah.
have cattle come in. We doctored a lot of eared cattle here that are already half crazy, dude. And if you mishandle them, it is just so bad, man. And you get on TikTok, and I hate to bash on TikTok because I post on there, but and you watch these videos of these guys doctoring, man, and they are just blowing through the middle of the herd. And I am like, as long as I don't ever have to go in there, do whatever you're gonna do, you know?
Yeah, and that's what happened. I've done it. You decide I need to doctor this one. It turns into a grudge match, and you make a foolish mistake, and you scatter a bunch of them, run through the herd. I've done it.
Yes, everyone's done
I
it. It's the
everyone's
aftermath.
done it. It's the aftermath, and it takes. What I learned was, okay, that calf needs doctored, but if he's going to cause me that much problem to where I'm going to run everything else hard, whether it's dusty, maybe your hay you're feeding's dusty, it's hot and cold. Like Nevada, we'll get 50 and 60-degree temperature swings between day and night. That's on the extreme end of it. Most of them are like, you'll have a morning that is 10 degrees and the day is 60 degrees. That's a 50-degree swing. Everything's at risk for pneumonia then.
Yeah.
If you're going to run that whole herd around, stress all those calves to doctor one, you just made 3 more sick. You're a net loss of 2 sick calves now.
Yeah.
Where, maybe this evening or maybe tomorrow morning, that first calf you looked at, he might be just a little bit sicker where you can get a sneak on him, one loop. The rest of the calves don't even leave the manger.
Mm-hmm.
That to me is the better option because in the end, the herd health is better.
100%. 100%. I've never thought of it that way. Honestly, like for us, it's isolate. Like if you're going to run 2-1, get them away. Like get them as far away as you can. And then typically speaking, like you have your old proverbial high-headed idiot that they smell you coming and there's no chance. But I would say 7 out of 10 calves give you a standing shot.
Yeah, you'll
Where
get that.
Where we live.
Yeah, here, like on this video, that the pens in that particular feedlot are fairly small.
Mm-hmm.
Not that those, not that you won't get a standing shot there. You will most of the time, and that standing shot might not happen your first try you set it up. You might have to ease around in the corrals 10, 15 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
and them cattle, and just about anywhere. Eventually, the cattle decide, okay, this guy on this horse, he's not going to bother me. I'm going to go back to smelling this fence post or doing whatever I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
That patience there to wait to get that first shot. I had some wrecks developing that patient because you're excited, you get to go rope something, maybe you fed hay all morning and now you got just the afternoon to get through 1,000 head in that feed lot, and there's a couple that you got a doctor, so you're in a hurry, and you'll always end up be further ahead just to have that patience and set a shot up really slow. Because a guy can rope a dummy 99 out of 100 times, but he might only have a 70% average running one down.
For sure. And that's the thing about Houlihan's or tip overs or whatever your poison is. Like the greatest 3-point shooters in the world, 33% is incredible. So to me, a 3-cool Houlihan is a 3-point shot. I mean, that's a 3-pointer in basketball, if you're 33%, that's pretty good. And I'm going to throw it every time. You hear me? Every single time. And even if it's 5 coals, I'm going to try just, for the video because it's freaking awesome. But watch that rope sail out there like that far. It's such a cool deal. So who taught you how to rope?
Sorry about that. My computer came unplugged. It got dark.
No, you're good.
When I was growing up, we were leasing a little ranch outside of Carson City, and a man by the name of Scooter McGinnis taught me to rope, and I was in high school before I started roping, And that was just team roping. You know,
Mm-hmm.
the little ranch we had, if something needed doctored, we just pushed it up into the corrals and run it through the chute. We didn't rope it and knock it down
Mm-hmm.
and do it the way that would have saved a lot of time and been a lot easier. Um, Scooter McGinnis taught me to rope there, and then I went through college and didn't rope and spent a little bit of time working in town and in the oil fields, and always was kind of natural with throwing a rope per
Mm-hmm.
se, but didn't know a lot of the finer points. And then in the fall of 2015, I hired on for my first full time cowboying job um, underneath a guy named Pat Carpenter, and him and I are good friends to this day. And he taught me a lot,
Mm-hmm.
and he we laugh about it now because I was nowhere near as handy as I thought I was when I hired on with him. And he says, the only reason I kept you around is because you were tough and you knew how to survive in the desert. Um, but the man that married my wife and I, Jerry Harper, he told me one time we were on the desert. It was my internship between my 2 years of college. And the cowboys were fanning out across that part of the Owyhee Desert to make a gather, and he put me in the drag right on the road. I was the only guy that didn't know the country. Well, we all jumped out of the trailer at the same time. So I just sat there, you know, because if I started walking down the road, I was going to be way ahead of everybody else. And I sat there for probably half an hour, and Jerry come back by in the pickup, and he says, "What are you doing?" I says, "Well, I'm sitting here waiting on make sure these guys get out to where they're going to gather. That way I don't get ahead of them." And he
Mm-hmm.
says, "That's pretty good cowboy do that." He says, "But what would a better cowboy do?" And I thought about it, and I says, "I'd probably ride over and get on that little ridge where I could see at least half of the guys."
Mm-hmm.
And he says, "There you go." And that's when I realized that if you want to get handy, or you just pay attention to the people that are handier than you are wherever you're at.
Mm-hmm.
And it may not be handy in every aspect, but surely you can learn something from them. So I've tried to pick up a little bit of something from everywhere I go. And then again, Christian Oyarzun, he was talking to me about having kids and how they're fun after they're a couple years old. He was watching me heel one day at a branding, and he rode over just real quiet, and he says, "Right up ahead of your calf and stop your horse." He says, "And throw your loop as soon as that calf shoulder passes where you want that loop to go,
Mm.
and let the heel or header drag it past you, rather than coming up behind him and trying to scoop him like a team roper would."
Yeah.
And it was just a light bulb right there.
Mm-hmm.
And so I can't really say one person has taught me to rope, but a bunch of guys have.
Yeah. It's funny nowadays because like uh, the reason why we have a YouTube channel is almost because I was pissed that I didn't have anybody to watch other than the guys I worked with. It's like, God dang it, everybody. Like, where's this at, dude? We've had GoPros for 10 years now. How has nobody put one of these on, you know? And I also, I tell people at clinics, I tell anybody that I teach exactly what you just said. It's you can learn exactly what to do and what not to do in every situation that you work with another guy in. And I've been fortunate with our platform to get to doctor and rope with some really handy dudes. Like when it comes to roping, especially because like when somebody invites us to a branding and we're like, okay, can we film it? And they're like, yeah. Well, then the people that they invite to come brand are typically like A1 guys, you know, like
Yeah,
people who can freaking rope. Like,
yeah,
and it's always super fun because you get to watch and you'll know this doing what you do, you learn almost as much from the footage as you do the actual experience. Um, I think watching my film over and over of myself and of other guys has escalated my roping ability way past what it should be. If I'd have just doctored yearlings in Alabama forever, I would be a good roper because there's a lot of roping to do. But we didn't heal. Like you don't heal when you got a 40 head list. You
hmm
go in a pasture and he goes in a pasture and you doctor
right.
them all and you might heal the last 2 head, you know, but when you got 40 to do and you're starting after you push up at lunch, like you can't go team rope them all. You got to go doctor your
No,
list, you know?
for
Um,
sure.
that's really cool, man. Cause that's one thing about YouTube that I've appreciated, the stuff that's come out now. And then TikTok's fun too, because everybody puts their Rex on there and that's such a good time. But you get to watch other guys do stuff.
Yeah,
And that's a lot of fun.
it's been. I've noticed it, and it's getting better, I suppose, as I have gotten more used to wearing the camera.
Mm-hmm.
But it seemed like when I first started wearing that camera, my roping ability was cut in half as soon as it turned on.
It's the
It had
curse,
me.
baby. It's the
Oh my
curse.
goodness.
It is terrible. Dude, when you go play, like when we go places and like, it's not just GoPros when we go places. Like you got GoPros and freaking drones and videographers and like,
Mhm.
it's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot. And it makes people uncomfortable.
Mhm.
Like the best ropers I've ever seen in the world are uncomfortable. Um, like when we do the guapos, man, and we got, videographers all over the pen, and these guys are going in there that I've doctored with that don't freaking miss, dude. Like, don't miss. And they just are trash. I mean,
Yeah.
just terrible. Like, there's a super handy guy that I know. His name's Luis Moya, and he is like, there's people that I've watched over the years that I emulate, and he's one of them. Like just the way he carries himself and his horse, the way he swings his rope, he's just freaking cool, man. Like everything he does is cool. Um, and the first guapo he's in, he lost his rope,
Oh
and
no.
which is like the guy that works with him every day. His name's BJ, and he actually, I think he won that guapo. Anyway, I'm sitting with BJ, and I was like, did he just lose his freaking rope, man? And it's in the video, like the highlight video of it. And BJ was like, I've worked with him for 10 years and I've never seen him lose his rope. But what's funny is he lost his rope, but he got his rope back the coolest I've ever seen somebody get their rope back. He like let the calf go to the herd, and he stepped off his horse without ever coming out of the stirrup, hooked his rope with his spur, and then flipped it up over his horse's butt and caught it and stepped back on without
Oh
ever
yeah.
getting off his horse.
Oh
I
yeah.
was like, man, that dude even gets his rope back cool. Like I'd have been out there running around like an idiot, you know? It was freaking awesome. But the curse of the camera, dude, that drone, have you filmed with a drone any?
I haven't.
Dude, it is it is awful. It's like this ominous like over the top of you while you're trying to rope. And the second you hear it, you're just like, I'm trash. I can't rope anything. It's so bad. It's so terrible. Um, so with that being said, how's the reception when you go to places in day work and you're with other hands that don't know you? Um, when you put the camera on, how's
it's
that feel?
it's interesting. You get some guys that are just fluid and natural in front of the camera,
Mm-hmm.
and usually the first day everybody's a cardboard cutout,
Oh yeah.
and then by the second day everybody kind of relaxes a bit. And the couple guys that my channel sees a lot, like Pat and Adam, they were cardboard at first, and by the end
Mhm.
of it I'm having a harder time editing because they're joking to the camera more than they're
Yeah.
giving me usable
Cowboying.
stuff.
Yes.
Oh man, I could, if I ever decided to self-implode my channel, I'd just put a bloopers reel, stuff the guys knew the camera was going to hear that it
Yes.
shouldn't. um, but it's been fun. It's been interesting to see who said, okay, yeah, that's fine. Film this part, but don't film that part. Or every
Mhm.
now and then somebody be like, I don't want any filming at all. And it's like, all right, well, let's just go get a job done then.
Yeah.
It's been good for the most part.
I think that's a misconception. Like we've gone to places like that too, or like we don't got a video, dude. Like we'll just come help, you know.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But yeah, but normally, but it's one of those things, man, that once you see it, like once you see what it can be, and people don't trust the video editing process, right? And
Right.
that's what I tell everybody. I'm like, you have a good video editor, okay? I know what I'm looking at. Like I'm not gonna make you look stupid, you
Yeah,
know.
exactly. It's like I tell them, like, I'll show myself missing,
Hmm.
and there's a prime example on the video out at the Colby Cattle Company that just came out a couple days ago. Talon runs in front of me and misses a rope, or misses a loop rather, and I ran up and stuck it on the calf.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what it didn't show in the episode was I'd missed half a dozen loops and Talon had missed 2 or 3.
Mm-hmm.
The ambient air temperature was 6 degrees above zero that morning. It was probably 12 degrees then. We'd both been horseback for about 5 hours. You're froze, everything's stiff. Your horses, they're tired and cold too. So it's like I won't show anything that makes somebody look bad just to make them look bad. Where like showing, because Talon missed that calf and I ran up right there and roped it. But it tells the story of we started to rope that calf over here, and then guys that know cowboying realizes we're not in the same spot we were when we started to rope that calf.
Right.
Like there's something happened there.
Yeah.
And I don't know if the curse of the camera is a little bit different for me, but I have not been able to film one wreck yet.
Really?
I have. Yep. The closest thing I have to a wreck is one of my friends tripped on a rock and fell on his face. Wow.
Ooh.
Not even a horseback. So I probably just jinxed
Not
myself.
horseback. He's just walking.
Just walking, tripped on a rock.
Did you put it in the video?
No, absolutely not.
Come on, man. That's fantastic. This is why cowboys ride horses.
On that particular job, that friend of mine was signing the paycheck, so I wanted the paycheck.
Yeah. That makes sense. I totally understand that. Well, it's kind of this balance between like some wrecks are good to get, and then some are just for fun to watch later for us, because I mean it, and I'm not in this right here. I'm not talking to your working cowhand, because every working cowhand is going to have these stories. It's the people who don't understand that you can't risk it. You just can't risk it. Like out of the thousands of calves I've doctored, okay, I can probably count on both hands how many calves I've chili whopped, like straight up pitch the slack, take off running, go to the horn and get some respect. Like if they're running under my horse's butt, none of that goes online. Does it happen? Yeah. I ain't gonna get disrespected by no cow.
It's just like being in a fist fight at school. I'm not gonna throw the first punch, but if you hit me, you're getting hit back. Buddy, they'll try to kill you. Really. Mm-hmm. And having a respect level is a thing, but you say that to a working cowhand, they're like, you say that to somebody who doesn't know, and you've immediately called PETA on yourself. So there's this fine line that we dance, and I've gotten like later in the years, like I made a video for Black Friday. I don't know if you saw this. It's called The Mist Collector. Did you see that video? Oh yeah. Yes, I did.
Freaking priceless. Dude, I was literally sitting at my computer at like 2:00 in the morning, laughing uncontrollably making that video. I was like, this is freaking hilarious. Because if you were to go through all of my film for the last 8 years, the miss to catch ratio is astronomical. Like we have so many misses on camera, and these people, we go to places and they're like, you guys are the best ropers ever. I'm like, no. I'm the best video editor ever. There's a giant difference between how many times you miss versus catch. And that's the thing, man. You watch a guy in the NBA, 30%, dude, that's 3 out of 10. That's 3 out of 10.
I worked for a ranch in central Nevada, and one of the deals there was come branding season, Martin Black and a bunch of his students for the ranch school come out and helped us brand calves. Mm-hmm. And that was a ton of fun. They were really cool people. They were, not as an insult, but they were dudes, lawyers, full-time professionals, this and that, and they'd go get their cowboy fix a couple weeks a year. Mm-hmm. And leading up to this deal, I'm thinking, man, this can be a babysitting gig. It's going to be a wreck. Like I was kind of dreading it. They were a blast to be around because they wanted to learn. They soaked up knowledge, and they were pretty handy, some of them to begin with. Like I'd ride with a couple of them every day of the week and not have a problem. Yeah. But after every day, would all sit around this great big table there and have supper. And basically just a big, Q&A with Martin, and he'd ask the students questions and vice versa. And I forget what the lady's name was. She says, "Boy, Martin, you sure catch a lot of loops." And he says, "I don't catch any more than you do. I just rebuild faster."
Facts. Facts, dude. I have said that to so many people. I've said the best roper in the pen is not the one who catches the most. It's the guy who can rebuild the fastest.
Yep.
Period. Because I'll rebuild a loop faster than you ever seen in your life. Just it hits the ground. I'm like, because it makes me mad, dude. I hate missing. I hate it, but it's part of the game, man. It is. But now when I'm in a roping, so like we go to the Pro-Am every year. I don't think I'm going to make it this year, but we go to the Pro-Am, and I freaking love that roping. It is so much fun. But when I go to those things, I keep my percentages. Like I write it down, like, because I go
Make it a
in,
business.
yeah, wanting to like perform better than I did the year before. Like honestly, trying to beat my pro. You know what I'm saying? Like that's my
Yeah.
goal. And last year in November, we moved. Me and my wife moved from Oklahoma back to Alabama, and I did not ride a horse the whole year. Like we moved back. I don't know if you've seen the other podcast episodes, but like I have an autoimmune disease called psoriatic arthritis, and it's arthritis of the small joints. So it's like lower back, hands, feet. Like to put my boots on to ride, I have to like tape my feet down because they're swollen all the time. Like I can wear like Crocs and some Hey Dudes, and that's about it.
They make them spurs for Crocs now,
I
don't
got
they?
some, dude. I took them to the Pro-Am this year. I'm not kidding. So I hadn't rode in like a year, but I was like, I'm going to the freaking Pro-Am, you know? So I flew out to Oklahoma and practiced for a couple of days, and we went, and I went 17 for 22. And I was like,
Nice.
that's the best I've ever done. I should quit today. And I think because we practice so much all the time, and the pressure feels so immense when we go do anything because people watch us on YouTube and we
Right.
make cool videos of the ropes because we want to sell the ropes and showcase them at their highest potential. That when you walk into a clinic, and like at our clinics, we on day 2 we do a groundwork demo and we go in and rope like 3 or 4 calves and like show the groundwork and just kind of a demo how to do it all. Dude, you couldn't fit a greased BB up my butt trying to do that because it's just uncomfortable. It's like all these people are just sitting on the fence, like watching you, and it's just people don't understand. Or I don't think they understand unless they've actually done it, what you're talking about. As far as like, when you've been sitting on a horse for 5 hours and you've rode 20 miles, and then this old, soggy sucker comes walking up limping, and you're like, all right, shake a loop out, and
Yeah.
it's on then, I mean, and you miss, dude, all the time. It's part of it.
Oh, yeah, you miss, or you miss your dallies, or you catch a
Yeah.
front leg or real deep. It's and that's when I decided to start filming and putting my videos on YouTube. That's one thing I thought. I thought I'm not gonna try and just show the Hollywood romantic version of it. Or like I'm gonna show the suck
Yes.
because that's the truth. And
Mm-hmm.
that's like I just today I posted a little short video of I called it the ugliest branding on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
And it was in a small pen, and just like Rosie said, it was half mud, half ice, half water trough.
Ooh.
And was fighting with this cotton rope I got, just an untreated cotton, and for whatever reason it would not break in right. It wanted to kink, it wanted to figure eight. It just I've had I don't know how many of them, and this one I finally give up on. But I could not catch 2 legs, and Rosie's hip is at the time he needs surgery on it. I mean, he rode with us the first day on that job, and then he says, "I can't ride." He says, I'm cooked. And so it's like I can't catch 2 legs on anything. We had, I think, 4 calves to do.
Mm-hmm.
And just because we were turning them out in a different allotment, and they just needed iron is all they needed. And it's just one of those days I'm having a horrible time. And finally, I just started letting my heel loop sit there and tangle up, and finally, 2 legs that come up, and by the end of it, Rosie says, that takes a lot more of a hand to sit there and wait and have the patience and take 2 legs. That way I don't have to tail one down by a high hawk or something.
Mm-hmm.
And that right there, I really thought this needs to go on YouTube. That way people see the reality of it and that it's not all groomed arenas and sunny weather.
No, it's,
no,
it's wind blowing, dude. It's freaking brutal. That's why I named the podcast what I named it. And my hope is to have all sorts of different kinds of people on here. It's like Joe Rogan is a fight guy, like he does the fights. But the people he has on his podcast they don't fight. They're just from all over the place. And same here because go ahead.
I got a ton of respect for Joe Rogan. He's so open-minded with everybody.
God, it's crazy, dude. That dude's brain is like it. I love his podcast because it's a lot of fun to listen to, but that's kind of the idea is like, because of the world that I live in now and the people that I've been introduced to, cowboys are a rare breed because they're not only good at suffering, but they freaking like it. Like, they're like freaks in nature, dude.
There's one day in particular, we were pushing a bunch of cattle who didn't know the country to a part of the country we didn't know. And I was, I think, 2 weeks out of having carpal tunnel release done on both hands. My horse blew up as soon as I stepped on him that morning. It was one of the most miserable days I have ever had, let alone horseback. It was the most miserable day of horseback. And the end of the day, we're sitting on this ridgeline. We pushed up to this ridgeline, and their cattle are finally dropping onto water. And I stepped off this jughead and just sat on my butt. And the cow boss walks up, and he says, "Well, I think we're gonna live, but I'm not sure about our health."
That's funny.
Anytime the suffering sets in again, whether it be from heat or cold or long hours or you got something where your horse has got something, he's not quitting being a jerk all day. Eventually every cowboy gets one day they can think back to and think it ain't as bad as that day was.
Yep.
And that you have to like knowing that you can suffer through it and you'll be okay. That trailer's down there or in 2015, right after I hired on to that outfit where Pat works, when you went to the C Punch, Highway 447 runs up, and the C Punch is on the east side of the highway. They're south of Gerlach, or I guess east of Gerlach also. Across the highway is a little ranch called Rodeo Creek. And my first job when I hired on the bigger ranch was go to Rodeo Creek and gather it. It is 250,000 acres. There's 400 head. I got a string of horses that I didn't know anything about and was by myself. I'd never been there.
Ugh.
So, it took me 2 months and I didn't get it clean. I ended up, I think, 35 or 40 head short. But as I was getting down to the remnants, it was the 1st of November when I started that. And I was getting down to the remnants and was talking to the boss about where to go. And not Pat, talking to the other boss. And he says, ride to such and such a place and check if there's cattle there. So I got the BLM map out and was looking at it and thought, it's the 15th of December. You only got, 9 hours of daylight, maybe 10 hours of daylight, not much. That's an overnight trip. So I threw all the blankets I could find in the bunkhouse in my bedroll and took a pack horse over and got as far as I was going to ride. Didn't even see a cow track. Thought, okay, so I found some old Mustanger corrals that were falling down and built a fire and set up my bedroll and stuff. And it got dark and I crawled in it and crawled out of it when the sunrise again. And it got down to like 4 degrees that night. All I had was my bedroll and all I took off was my spurs when I crawled into my bed and got up the next morning and melted my ice water out to make coffee and went about my looking on the other parts of the country ahead. And I didn't realize it at the time, but now it's like when I get cold, I just think back to that night because it's not as cold as that night was.
That is insane. It's so it's amazing the parallels between like the suffering that like the difficulties of the job here versus out there. Like I kind of have a similar story. The South Sandstone is burned in the side of my brain. It was a gather that just went. It was just like everything that could go wrong. Freaking trash, dude. Is awful. But then working down here, it was so. It's not like that. Like the miles you ride are like dog years. Like it's not the same. And then the way that they get you is dark doesn't mean dark down here. And the list doesn't end because it's dark. It ends when you're done with it. And it's like you said earlier in the podcast, like doing everything is not an option. There's no riding job here. There's a everything job. So like fixing water troughs, plumbing, fencing, all the stuff. You do it every day, all of it, every single day. And I can remember, man, you'd freaking be getting done putting your horse up or whatever, and the boss man would drive by and be like, hey, he'd kind of flick you a sheet of paper. He'd be like, these pastures need some hay in them. And it'd be a 25 bale hay list. And it's freaking dark. And you just go to putting out hay. You know what I mean? And like, you turn the lights on the tractor on, it ain't, you got lights. What are you whining about? Yeah. Get after it, you know? But it's something that and it's not, I'm sure the oil field is very similar. The military in certain aspects were similar to this. The more you suffer, the better you get at it. And I think God designed it that way for men. It's like the world has created this environment where men are allowed to be candy, just weak candy men. And what's funny is that makes people like me and you look weird, but we're not weird. We're what it's supposed to be. Like you're supposed to be good at embracing the suck. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we're not weird, but we're definitely the minority in today's 100%. World, and especially being Christians.
Yes.
And that's every video I post, I try and put a little scripture at the end, and sometimes it might kind of be an offshoot of what the video, if you can read some into that there. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's I got a study Bible, I throw that open, and I think, hey, for some reason that one's jumping out at me today, and I'll put that on there. And if I go several years with YouTube, whether the channel makes it big or it doesn't or whatever, if it turns one person to Jesus, my channel is a success.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of like 3:10, is Philippians 3:10. And it says, for our determined purpose is to come to know the King and share in his sufferings in order to be transformed into Christ's likeness. And there's a lot of days I've regretted Dad picking that verse. You know what I'm saying? Like that's kind of been his life verse. And he instilled that in me. And it's an unbelievable thing. But the fact of the matter is like, if you don't have a reason for suffering, it's stupid. And that's the reason. The reason is Christ. Right. And the whole idea behind this podcast and all the episodes up to this point have just been me sitting here talking to this camera, and I talk about biblical things, but I'm not preaching because I'm not a preacher. And I don't have any answers. I don't freaking know what I'm doing, buddy. I'm just out here on a path trying to survive it. And it's more about having the opportunity to walk with other men like yourself in a world that's designed by the enemy to destroy us. Because it makes you feel isolated. It makes you feel like, you're the only one out here grinding. And that was the hope for the podcast, is that I could somehow interject my walk into other people's lives while they're driving to work or freaking fighting with their kid or whenever they listen to their podcast, and because that's how my heart's been changed. God changed my heart at work, doing the job, learning how to suffer, learning how to be just a freaking warrior, dude. Like that was never in a church pew was I like seeing the King. You know what I mean? But lots of
Right.
days horseback, I was like, wow, man. I mean, what a gift I've been given to be able to do this. And so it's interesting to me. People being good at suffering is very interesting to me. It's very fun to kind of step into that. And I appreciate you sharing it because sleeping in 4-degree weather in a bedroll, how old were you?
I was 23 then.
God almighty. So you had just come, would you just come back from college?
I just came. Yeah. Well, no. I got out of college in 2011 and spent some time like in the oil field stuff, and then moved back to Wisconsin to help my wife's family out for a little bit, and then that job ended, so we moved back to Nevada, and that's
Okay.
when I hired on there full time.
That's insane. It's good stuff, man. Are y'all planning on having more kids?
I don't think so. We're pretty happy with just one.
Yeah.
So
That first year will
she's
take it out of you, buddy. It'll freaking take it out of you.
well, to me, it's like having a herd of horses. I got to divvy my time up between all of them, and I don't want to have to pick one or the other with a kid.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
No, yeah,
So
I
I'm
get
sure parents that have multiple kids don't see it that way, but
No, they get it. You know, like ours are a 4-year difference. So they're just in such different phases that, like, and you know how it is with the little ones, like, that's kind of mama's time. It's when they get like 5, 6 years old that, like, that's when daddy comes into the picture. And I'm hyper involved. Like, I stayed at home with my son for 2 years, you know. I'd go doctor and stuff, but I didn't have a full-time job other than 310. And I do all that remote. So, you know, he was with me till he started kindergarten, and I've been trying to talk my wife into letting me pull him out of school so he could just come work at the rope shop. Like, he came this week, dude, and was like so much help. Like, he was pulling ropes and like untwisting tie strings and stuff, like making a hand, you know. I was like, dude, this kid's freaking awesome. Like, and he's so cheap. You give him $20 for a full day's work, he's like, yeah, dad, thanks. You know, it's the best. But anyways, what's funny is when we walked out that morning to go to work, he said, Dad, how long are we going to work today? I said, well, we're going to work all day. And he started crying. And I was like, why are you crying, dude? And he was like, I don't want to work all day. I was like, man, come on, man. Hush, get in the car. Let's go to work. And then he comes in, gets him a bag of goldfish, you know, and freaking gets after it. He's faster than half the guys I got that actually work here. I should probably hire new guys, but that's neither here nor there. I got great people. They're just not super fast. But hard to find a rope tire in Alabama, bro. That's not a thing here. People who
that's probably hard to find one anywhere, honestly.
it is a learned skill. Plus, everybody else, like all the other rope companies, tie a crown knot, which is super easy. We tie a Matthew Walker knot, which is not as easy. But I got some people coming along. We just moved it. We moved the rope shop the first week of January. So I pretty much got all new people. And so we've been training like crazy, trying to get people spun up to where I can do like my actual job. Because I do a lot of rope tying right now.
Those are the knots in the tail of the rope, you mean?
The Matthew Walker?
The Honda.
No,
yeah.
For the Honda.
Oh, Honda,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah, like the stopper knot.
Gotcha.
It's a really pretty knot. It's a cool knot. But
yeah, I watched your short when you tied that the other day while you were talking.
Yeah, it's kind of
impressive.
It's kind of I took for granted the people that we had tying them already, honestly, because when we moved it, I was like, it's easy. It's an easy knot. It's not. It's not to teach. It's like weird to get it perfect, to teach somebody to tie it perfect every time, which we're pretty anal about Hondas. And you know, you get out, somebody says you got crossed up Hondas, like, you can't have that. You know, they got to be right. And the guys who buy our stuff usually know what they're looking at. You know, lots of guys who buy our stuff are working because that's what we showcase. So we do have a lot of beginners, but anyway, so
you can take a nice rope, tie a bad Honda in it, and it just feels like garbage.
Garbage. Garbage. I'm actually going to do it. I think this week, I'm going to do a figure 8 video this week, like how to get a figure 8 out of your rope and then how to not put a figure 8 in your rope when you swing it, you know? Cottons are different. That's not.
I'm a cotton guy.
Those things, those cottons now, that's like a marriage. You gotta love, especially the linseed ones. Holy freaking crap. Those things are a pile when you start with them. Like breaking those in is a nightmare.
Yep, I did like your how you broke your wax cottons in on a drill pipe like that.
Yeah.
I did try that with the last cotton I get. So what I like is I like the untreated cottons, and I'll rope with them until they're broke in, and then I'll linseed them, and then people don't understand that don't rope don't understand, but cotton ropes are not consistent one to the next.
Not at all.
They're I mean, you may have one that's as heavy as a poly and the other is lighter than a nylon team roping rope, you know? So the two ways I go with them is either linseed oil or paint. And the end result is always different from rope to rope with a cotton, but I get along with them.
Yeah. We just wax them. And you know, we started getting these new polys, all right. And I'm a poly man through and through. I love a poly. And I'll use a cotton like at a Brandon or whatever, but Doctor and Yearlings, I like a poly because it's wet down here. Like them cottons don't like the wet as much.
Well, they get angry.
Yeah, so the polys do really good in the wet, but they were always so limp. They're like a dish rag. And so when we had ours made, we had them spun tight, like tight. And the first two head, they're like a cotton. I mean, they are a kinky sucker. Like you got to break them in. You can't just, you know, and we send a little sheet with every rope that says how to break it in. But instead of taking 40 head, it takes 2. Right. And then they're freaking dialed. They're awesome. And so we're really worried about that because sending them out to people when they first get them out, it's not like a team rope and rope. Like you can't just get it out and just go. You need to run it around a post or at least feed it on your horn or something, you know? But we sell more cottons than anything else. And they're the kinkiest, sorriest suckers on earth. Hard to break in anyway. But how hot does like an untreated cotton get? Does it get hot on your hand?
Brand new cottons get really hot and they're really abrasive on your mule hide. I don't rope with rubber. I don't know what they would do to rubber. They're pretty aggressive that way. And they get basically I tell people when they stop being aggressive and abrasive and hot in your hand, that's when they're ready to linseed. And then once they linseed, they're a lot cooler. They're really easy on your mule hide. And then if you go a step further, and you don't have to linseed before you paint them, but you can. Once you paint them, the house paint will fill in the grooves of the rope, and it'll feel just like a garden hose. And you can run all 60 foot of that through your hand. As long as you're smart enough not to squeeze on it, it's not going to burn you.
Yeah.
You know, and you can, that's one thing I learned to like about cottons being on a cowboy's salary is you can buy them in an 88-foot coil. That's a lot of rope to pack. I always cut them at 70, and then you got 18 foot for tie strings or whatever. And you can, you know, cut them a couple times, and eventually they get too short to use. But once they get painted and nice, they're so easy on your mule hide where you're not burning the mule hide up every other branding. Yeah, and that I got sick of paying $20 for a strip of mule hide.
Well, that's kind of the deal. The cottons, if you don't run them through a trailer, pretty much they'll last for. I mean, they just get better. Like they just get better and better and better, and they get like glassy, like this like crispy. Is like they almost clean.
They get when they get that gloss to them like that, man. It don't matter how windy it is, they're cutting through the wind.
Yes, it's. I've had one cotton ever, and I work at a rope company. You know what I mean? Like I can have 100 cottons if I wanted, but I have one that I broke in, and I freaking love it, and I'm never getting another one. Like I burn them polys up, you know, and get a new one. But the cotton it's like a special thing. I only get it out when it's like time to brand a bunch or whatever.
That's what I like, the way polys feel, and it's been a lot of years since I even had a poly. I roped pretty good with them when I was using them, but they just wore out so fast. Like I said, it was just on a budget and was like, I got to find something that lasts longer.
Mm-hmm. Well, that is the cotton. For anybody listening, 310ranchlife.com. Wax cottons. Let's go. Unless you're going to linseed them, then you got to do that yourself. I'm not getting a vat of oil. We already have we got this thing. It's this giant industrial cheese vat is what it is. And that's how we wax them. We do like 15
that would not be how you linseed them.
No.
I got a video of how to linseed them on my channel. So check that out.
Yes.
You stretch them like between two pickups, just guitar string tight. And I mean, like, if I put the pickup in reverse, back in park, and then it rolls again, it's going to snap like that kind of tight.
Yeah.
And then just pour the linseed oil in your hand and run down your rope. And that's how I linseed them.
Mm-hmm.
I had one time where I took like a dog dish pan, a shallow pan, and poured, it was like a half gallon of linseed oil. That stuff's not the cheapest, and I dipped that rope in there and made sure it was all covered and then took it out. And by not being stretched, the fibers were open. That rope absorbed so much of that linseed oil. It was a slobbery, greasy, nasty thing for months.
Really?
It was miserable. God, it was disgusting. And it would pick sand up, and it was like roping with a wet rope, how it picks sand up and eats your hand, Yeah. It did that for months, and I was like, I got to figure a different way out to do this.
That is hilarious.
Then I stretched one up when I was living in camp, and I think it was like a Wednesday. It was hot, real hot time of year. And I painted it with New Holland blue tractor paint.
Yeah.
You don't have to be super picky on what kind of paint, as long as it's an exterior paint.
Yeah.
And stretched it up real good and tight with a come along and painted it. And that's pretty simple. You just get that paint on a rag, and you only wipe from the Honda to the tail.
Mm-hmm.
You don't ever go from the tail of the Honda, because it'll make little barbs that'll eat your hand.
Really?
But anyways, I just because that's the direction the rope runs through your hand.
Mm-hmm.
So anyways, I got that rope painted, and then the next day I got back to my cow camp, and there was a note on my table from the cow boss. It said, come back to the ranch a day early. We're going to brand some calves at the neighbors. So, okay, great. So I headed in, took my freshly painted cotton rope with me. It had, I think, 2 nights to dry. And he brought this horse by the name of Poncho, and Poncho was a gray. And by the end of that branding, I had blue on one side of Poncho, and on my saddle, and on my chaps, and my shirt, and my hand. So if you're gonna paint one of them, he was like a blue roan on one side and a gray on the other. God, I felt bad for him. He was blue for weeks, but you got to give them at least a week to dry once you paint them.
Really? Huh? I've only ever seen one of those. I had a buddy of mine that used a painted one, and that's how he liked them. Which, I mean, to each their own. You know what I mean?
Once. I'll go through. I just got one right now that I linseeded, and then I'm gonna probably paint it late this spring once the weather turns hot. Once it gets broken and I want to use a different rope, I'll mail it to you.
Okay, yeah.
You can play with it, see how it feels. They're, like I said, once they get to the paint wears off the ridges of the twist, but it stays in like the valleys, and they get smooth like a garden hose. Man, they cut the wind. You can run one down on a windy day, and it's real nice, and they're heavy because that linseed oil makes them heavy.
Yeah. We just built so we used to stretch every cotton with a truck. And then when we moved here, my dad has the flatbed. We had this thing that it fit on the flatbed, and then we had hooks mounted, and then you hooked each end and then just pull off with the truck. We could do like 10 at a time. So
nice.
I took those hooks and we built this hydraulic stretcher. It's freaking awesome. I'll have to do a video on it. It's pretty cool.
How do you tell how much tension you got on a rope? You got a pressure gauge, or
no? We stretch them 2 feet.
On how long of a rope?
A 60-footer.
On a 60-footer.
Yeah.
That's probably about what I do mine. Maybe a little more on those cottons, because on the pickups you can sit in the driver's seat, because I got like the push bumpers on mine, and I just go to the hitch of another pickup. You can look down them, and of course you can always see that belly. They never get totally straight, but you can tell what's not tight. I just try and stretch them by feel, just like if you're holding a really big calf on a fire,
Yeah.
that amount of deflection in the rope, and it's probably about 2 foot of stretch I take out of the whole thing.
Yeah. Our main deal is like you take them out of the wax and knock them off. You got to get the excess wax off. So we scrape
Okay.
them. So when
Uh-huh.
you stretch them to 2 feet, it needs to be tight enough. We take a 5/16 wrench, two of them, and you put them on either side of the rope like this, and then run down the whole rope.
Oh yeah.
One way, you go top and bottom down, and then on the sides back, and get the excess knocked off. And then once a fella goes with the horn, 30 times on a calf, the glass is the wax and it's good to go. They're a
Right.
freaking mess to make though. There's wax everywhere up in here. But they're everybody loves them, we really dialed all our ropes down to really just what we like using. So we only carry like one nylon now. We carry one nylon, a bunch of polys, and then the cottons. So, we tie horn knots in them and stuff like the 3/8 cottons. We got this one called a heel and drag, which tying off is for other people. I don't do it, but I can tie a cool horn knot.
I'm scared of that much commitment,
Bro, I'm telling you, but it's just a 28-foot 3/8 cotton, and it's cool. Like to play with it, it's pretty fun.
Yeah.
We've tied a couple horn knots in like 60 footers and then gone to the arena and dumped it on one and just like, gosh,
Man,
sit down.
My horses would buck me off.
Dude, they don't like that. There's a lot of rope whipping around out there, on a 60-footer.
When you buy those cottons, before you tie the Honda, do they come with that teardrop shaped metal ring?
Yes.
Don't ever, and I'll tell this to anybody, don't ever rope anything with that. I had a brand new untreated cotton when I was working for a place, and the wrangle pen at that place was like pandemonium. Like horses, like you're going to get run over by a horse trying to halter another horse. Like it was just a wreck. And I had one horse in particular that had decided he was going to outsmart me a few times. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
And I lost my temper and went and got that brand new cotton and fed it through itself with that teardrop ring and tied it to a big stout pipe post. And he ran by and I stuck it on him and he hit the end of it and flipped him over backwards. And like, I thought, okay, that'll teach him. Well, he was wheezing, that really high pitched squeaking wheeze.
Yeah.
And I thought, he's not at the end of that rope. What's going on? That teardrop had crushed and didn't allow any slack to come to that loop that was around his neck.
No way. And that thing's a freaking slip knot, dude. Like the knot to it is a slip knot.
So this horse, he's on the ground. He thinks a lion's attacking him. Well, I run up to him to cut the knife. So he thinks, or cut the rope with my knife. He thinks I'm the one attacking him now. I finally just waited until his eyes kind of started to go like this and cut that rope. And man, he took a big breath of air. But and actually kind of
humbled him up a little bit.
Well, he got up a different horse, and I shouldn't say this because I know I'm going to get flack on my channel for it. But that horse was my Mustang Luke, the one that you did my react video on.
Really?
He was
the horse you were riding in that video.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, that was his come to Jesus moment.
Well, dang, he was riding around pretty nice in that.
Oh, thank you.
All of mine are getting the cotton, baby.
Well, Luke had the reason I got Luke is my buddy called me, and he says, "Well, okay, my wife and I are his kids' godparents."
Okay.
So he calls me and he says, "What do you got to trade for horse flesh?" And I says, "What do you mean?" I hadn't talked to him in a month or two, and he says, "I got this Mustang." And he just grabbed one of my daughters by her hair and threw her out of his corral.
Oh, my gosh. Luke needed the cotton, baby.
So I said, well, yeah, I've got a really old, gentle heel horse. He was getting too old to cowboy on like I was. I says, we'll just call it clean. And my buddy, he says, man, this is such not a fair trade. He says, I should go to jail for this trade. It's because he bucks, he bites, he strikes, he kicks. And Luke was a terrorist. I mean, a horrible terrorist for like 3 months. And finally, I lost my temper with him and we had our moment there.
I'm telling you.
And he got up he got up shaking and wide-eyed, and he'll still run around a little bit when you go to catch him, but he's like, hey man, I'll learn whatever you're trying to teach me because you're meaner than I am.
Well, the respect is hard to get, but once you got it,
Yeah.
it's a good deal.
And Luke had been several places where he could buffalo people, and that's how he ended up with my buddy. And my buddy's dang sure handy enough to ride him. There's not a doubt in my mind he'd have made Luke a nice horse. He just couldn't have him around his girls.
No, yeah, and then like my number one horse in Wyoming, my kids. Don't even look at him. Like stay. He's a savage. Like get away from him. And he was freaking. I mean, we had him for years. Like I rode this horse for freaking years, hundreds of miles. Just he's ain't no kid's horse. Don't touch him. Don't look at him. Don't get around him. Like
even to this day, Luke doesn't like my little girl. He does not like little kids. He will not. I mean, go after him or anything like that. But like if I'm unsaddling and she comes out, you can just see him just tense up like this, and it's like, okay, we'll just keep the two separate. And I don't know what caused it or what happened in these past, but he don't like little kids.
Huh.
You know, I've put some people that really don't know how to ride on him, and he takes care of him. He don't babysit him, but he takes care of him. He doesn't do anything cross, but he just don't like little kids.
Yeah, I never got mine close enough to. I, my wife doesn't ride, and has no want to. And if I'm being completely honest, I am completely okay with that because every clinic we go to where a husband and wife come, it's like, dude, come on, you can't teach anybody that you've seen naked. That's a thing, right? That's a thing.
I'd go along with that.
Yeah, don't try. Let someone else teach her if you want her to rope, but it's miserable. And so, because she doesn't know, it's scary, and they just ride the broke ones. He's just not a kid's horse. He's not an old lady's horse. He is a horse for a hand, which sucks because he's bred stupid. Like we could sell him for a pile of money if he was, not such a dink sometimes. But if so, and hands aren't going to pay what you'd want to. I mean, he's an own son of Kit Kat Sugar. I mean, he's like nice. He rides around in a halter like he is a nice horse, a really fun horse to ride if you know. But if you let him buffalo you, he's got you. He's got your brain now, and it's done.
Yeah.
We had many come to Jesus moments in Wyoming where I just got you almost got to spur his guts out to like get his respect. Not bucking. Now he's bucked me off a bunch, but I can't ride one bucking. Like if one farts crooked, I fall off. I mean more like he's being a cheat, and you just push
ducking
through
out.
and you just reach up there and like, hey buddy, you're not going to shoot me the middle finger. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And as soon as he knows that he's the best horse in the world. But if somebody gets on him and they don't know, he will make you very uncomfortable. Anyway, we've been trying to sell them for like a year, and everybody that's interested in them, we're like, yeah, probably not, because we only really keep mares. All the geldings we sell because you can't breed them. And we don't breed anything, right? We've tried to breed our horses for the last 3 or 4 years, like the mares that we got, but it just hadn't worked out. But he, for whatever reason, we've been stuck with him, and he was my number one go-to for the last, probably 5 years. And honestly, if you're going to ride one for 5 years, like they ought to be freaking nice at the end.
For sure.
Like I should be able to throw my kid up here and not be worried, but not that guy.
I know what'll happen is my little girl, she'll get to be, 6 or 7 years old, and my oldest after Rush, I'm going to keep him because he's going to replace the Mustang because the Mustang's 20 plus years old now.
Mm-hmm.
So what's going to happen basically is I'm going to have to ride all my colts all the time because my little girl's going to steal Rush. I can see it coming.
Yeah, no question. You'll be happy to do it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We've been really lucky with the horse breeding side because my wife is working for Dr. Torvik now that we live close to town, and she's been doing the AI on our horses, and it's been working really well.
Man, that's awesome. Yeah, we tried both. We sent them out there with one, and It didn't work. We did AI, it didn't work. And it's just a crying shame. I mean, you're talking about,
Yeah.
3 mares that you could get on and go Dr. Bridleless, legit, like real
Yeah.
life. And
My brood mare, you're lucky if you can catch her.
well, and that's the thing, Dad, he just likes mares, dude. He likes heart. That's what he says. He says you cut the heart out of a gelding. Oh, that's legit. That probably,
Yeah, this part of the world is mares are getting more popular, more accepted, but there's a lot of ranches out here that won't allow a working hand to have a mare
Really?
at all. Yeah, and it makes sense a little bit, and it makes a lot of sense when you think of the reasoning years ago when it was wagon outfits. Is with the feral horses we have out here, mares are going to bring them studs in, and it's going to cause problems. Where if you got a herd of geldings, the feral horses will leave you alone.
That's wild. That's not a thing here. Obviously, we don't have any wild horses, but
I wish we didn't.
Yeah, no, I bet that I've never been around any of that, but I've heard stories. I'm like, dude, that. And I worked with a guy who talked about roping them wild horses out there, and that sounds like a good time, old buddy.
In Mexico.
Yeah, right.
Not in the U.S. In Mexico.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
if you're gonna go race pickups, you go down to Mexico and race pickups.
That's right. That's right. Oh man.
Yeah, that's a whole nother level of fun that you have to experience about. I don't think a podcast or a YouTube video would do it justice.
Yeah, no, I believe that. Yeah, Dad's actually, we never horse roping down here isn't a thing, or anywhere we've been really, but he's going to a place in Utah this summer, I think, and they got a big herd of horses that they rope and cut every year, and he's going to help with that, so that'll be a different experience because that's not a thing that
I've roped a small number of horses. To be around guys that know how to do it and do it the right way would be really cool to learn.
Yeah, it sounds like that's what they do every year.
It's, how do I say this? The American public has such affinity for horses and put them such high on a pedestal where roping them to cut them is definitely becoming a lot less popular. And even like ranches that'll turn or cut a stud colt and turn him out until he's a 4 or 5 year old before they ever touch him again. A lot of places run him into a squeeze chute. The vet will sedate them. They let him out of the squeeze chute, and then the sedation hits.
Yeah,
because they don't want. There are two sides to that. One is they don't want to take a chance of hurting one, and that's probably a bit safer for them because there's so many guys that don't know how to rope them the right way. Where I think if you know how to rope them the right way, it's just as safe.
Well, it's just like cattle. I mean,
yeah.
A guy that doesn't know what he's doing with his rope is probably going to get himself killed. But and that's why Doctor and Yearlings here, horseback is not a thing because people don't know how to do it. You got a lot of team roping. But it's not.
I'll make a lot of people mad saying this, but team ropers do not make good cowboys with their skill set they have.
No,
a team roper can learn to be a good cowboy, absolutely, but they have to. There has to be a day where they realize that what they know in a team roping arena doesn't correlate to being a working cowboy.
It's not the same thing. And that's what, like, we don't sell team ropes, but we get people all the time. Hey, what's a good head rope? And I'm like, I have no idea because we don't sell those.
Whatever's in your hand.
I've never even used one. I've never even picked up a head rope. Or like what those guys heel with versus what I heel with are two totally different things.
I found one of my old heel ropes from high school about a year ago in the living quarters trailer, and I had not had it out of that rope bag in probably 10 or 12 years, and I took it out, and I didn't even build a loop. I took it out and just held it. Was like, nope.
Tie strings, baby. Best tie strings ever. There's a bunch of team ropers where we worked down here, and they would bring me their old ropes to make tie strings. I mean, I had hundreds of them. I was like, man, these ropes are perfect for tie strings. Like, but that's it.
They've only roped 10 heads.
Yeah, that's it, dude. And I don't even, honestly, might get kicked off get my cowboy card revoked. But I don't like team roping that much. It's just not. It's not fun to me. I don't like when my horse gets hot and like tripping. I don't like that. I've gone to pasture ropings, and those guys, man, you're talking. I ride in a hack, dude. I don't want my horse running through my hand. Okay. And if you put them at a freaking 40-foot score and blow to one that's 40 foot out there after about 2 head, that hackamore means nothing. There's nothing that stops them from wanting to go.
Man, I worked for a place that ran Corey and you'd go gather an allotment, and you'd get, an 80% gather or something like that the first couple days. And then after that, it was like the 1s and 2s. And them Corey when they run out on them deserts, and they didn't cut them as calves.
Yeah.
Oh, you had a truck. We had half-top trucks and trailers, and we'd cinch our horse up, be a horseback in the trailer with the loop built, with the butterfly doors open, because as soon as that truck and trailer stopped, they were gone. And you had to build to them. And we didn't do any of the corral work a horseback on that outfit, because the owner wanted them to know how to be worked afoot because they were roping stock. That made sense. But man, talk about your horses in a permanent state of blown up. Because it was sad, because you might have to run a quarter mile to them out there, and by the time you get there, your horse is half winded and the Corenies are fresh. You're going to get one shot.
Yeah, that's awful.
You're not going to be able to rebuild and stay with them. That outfit was a blast to work for. It really was, but it was hard. Like, you'd have to go in the evenings and ride your horses just to slow them back up to keep them from being blown up.
Yeah. We did that pasture open, I think, 3 years. And after the 3rd year, I was like, we did a guapo there. And so you did the guapo the day before, and my horse is riding around just freaking super nice. And then you get out there in that pasture open, and they just feel like after 2 runs, you're like, why did I sign up more? Why? And then you'd make the short go and be like, no, I got to go again. God dang it. And I would literally, each run, I would start, 10 feet further back, because there wasn't a box. It's just next to the chute. And by the end of it, we're all the way at the back of the darn thing, like behind the chute, because the second they crack that gate, you got to have room to let the calf actually score before your horse. They're fun, but you got a lot of work to do when you get home.
I've always, and there's probably not a guy in the world that would sign that for it, but I've always wanted to figure a way out to put a roping on and just have it in like a part of the desert that's just kind of low brush, like no tall brush, no ravines, nothing dangerous like that, but have it to where when you entered up, you drew your partner, and your horse went into a pot that was drawn for also. So you ended up you're drawing a horse. And then, but to make it more realistic yet, you're going to draw livestock out of a herd. You might get a cow, a calf, or a bull, or a yearling, or something like that. Let's make this random and just as real as it can be, and see what happens here. The only caveat I would put on the whole thing is you have to ride the horse in the headgear that's provided with it.
Yes.
Nobody's going to bring their best bridle horse to that deal, and some dink is going to bring a jug-headed shitter that's going to blow up. It's going to be entertaining.
No doubt. Somebody draw my horse and be like, this thing's got a halter on, bro. Like, what am I supposed to do with this freaking horse? Did some idiot bring a colt? No, he's 12, man. That's just what I ride in. God, just get on, all right? Oh, yeah. That's
some old boy from Nebraska would bring a 4-wheeler and a pack of dogs and win the whole thing.
Straight up. Oh, that's funny. Well, good. Well, what you got coming up next? Where can people find you? All the shout outs and things. Tell them what you got coming.
Basically, day work kind of slowed down for the fall. I got a couple more weeks worth of day working videos there coming up. The way I post on my channel is Friday is my day working videos. They're going through November. I had a little bit in December and a little bit in January. And then on Tuesdays are the kind of what's happening right now videos. Last couple have been starting one of the colts I've got, the filly I've got. Calving season's coming up, so I'm sure there's going to be some content there. Of course, we're 2 or 3 months from Brandon season, so that'll be a pile of content. I just try and show my life really, and not glorify it or anything. And if one of the things I say in almost every video is ask questions, I'll answer them. I'm not the most imaginative person, so if somebody asks a question, it might lead into a video, and just share some information is the biggest thing.
I second that. Ask questions.
Yeah, it's. I mean, that's how we share knowledge. That's how we keep our lifestyle, our culture alive.
Yeah.
So in the big picture of things is hopefully YouTube will get big enough for me that it can support my wife and I can day work full time and raise my half draft herd and kind of go that route with it.
That's awesome.
But
you got a website coming up? When are you going to start your website, dude? You got to get the website going, baby.
I got to get the website. I got to get TikTok. I got to figure out how TikTok and Instagram work and all that. I'm not. I'm new to this. I tell you, I lived out of cell service for a lot of years.
Hey, hire the Instagram and TikTok guys out once the YouTube gets big, because they're a pain in the butt. It's the more channels or more profiles you add, the bigger pain of a butt it becomes. Like, you got to make content specific stuff. It's great, guys. It's my favorite thing to do on earth, except for rope cows, but it is a job. Perfect. Well, this Saturday, well, no, I can't even say that because this is the week it's coming out. So the video of me reacting to the Rubuck Nevada channel's video is already out. That will already have been posted long before this podcast episode comes out. But I'm sure by the time we post it all, it'll all be linked where you can go back and forth. But if you haven't seen the React series, it's a lot of fun to do. Send me videos. I love battling the keyboard warriors. There's this, I'm assuming being from...
Head on over to my channel and fight with them.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So there's this YouTube channel I watch. So I like to golf. They call ranch roping the golf of roping because there's so many different shots, right? Well, there's this channel I watch called the DOD King, and he's got this YouTube series called The War Against Weasels. And all he does is anyone who talks smack to him on the internet, he goes to their home golf course and plays them in golf and runs his mouth in real life. It's freaking hilarious. And if I was independently wealthy, that is what I would do. Is I would go around to people, take my horse and my rope, and I'd bring the freaking cows, dude, and go show up at people's house and be like, okay, let's go. Let's play a game of pig. What you want? What you want to do, you know? Yeah. No team roping, though. Awesome. We're not going to do the team roping.
Nothing with a barrier.
No barriers. This is straight real cowboy stuff. But anyways, man, I sure do appreciate you coming on. You are literally the first guest on the Art of Suffering podcast. It's been great visiting with you, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Go check them out. Link is in the description.